Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the PENON Turbo. This is the latest product from PENON. This time a all BA set, 6 BAs to be more precise. And not I don't want to be a spoiler or anything, but a total beast of an IEM. But I'll get into that a little bit more. Just before I start actually getting into the whole review, actually I just wanted to say that I can only truly appreciate the Turbo for what it is, because over the last couple of months I've been lucky enough to have had access to some very, very nice IEMs. Not that I haven't had access before. I did. I own quite a few IEMs, and I own quite a few very nice IEMs, but the IEMs I'm talking about were IEMs that just were able to open the door to a whole different level of what is out there in the 1,000, the 2,000, the 3, the 4, the $5,000 realm. And that has enabled me obviously to have a wider perception and ultimately be able to judge things in a more coherent manner. And I heard things like the TXN Dest TI, which is for me probably the best IEM I've ever heard. It's a BA and EST IEM. I heard things like the PENON Impact, the older brother, to the Turbo. I heard a Noli VX. I had access, like I said, to some really, really nice IEMs, the Turbo kind of came and change a little bit my view when it comes to certain aspects of BAs and what a BA can do or BA cannot do. I'm not saying with that things like the Our Audio Neon Pro hadn't impressed me, or some of the ones that I have here in front of me, the Duno SA6 MK2, the Soundrime SR8, the EPZ 530, the 7th Acoustic Supernova. All of them impressed me, and all of them had and have specific characteristics, but I had never ever heard anything that has the ability to do bass like the Turbo does. Anyway, this is the box, the usual packaging that PENON offers. Nothing too elaborate. It's short and sweet and straight to the point. You take away the sleeve, which in this case doesn't even have anything in the back of with regards to the characteristics. It's really, really basic. And inside, you open it up, and what you get? Well, you get this pouch, which I honestly, without wanting to be disrespectful, I never really understand what this pouch is for. I'm assuming it will be maybe to put some tips or something, because you're obviously not going to be able to put the IEMs in there. These are one of the sets of tips that it brings. This is that cleaning tool and the thing to, the little clip to hold the cable in place. It brings this case with basically all of that stuff, or some of that stuff inside there, and then some more tips. The dark ones with and green nozzle, a green stem, sorry, and the lighter ones with the green stem, which are the ones that I actually am using. I mean, the difference between these two, honestly, most of the time I don't see a difference. I've yet to, one IEM I saw a slight difference, which was actually the H50, but they basically are the same, at least to my ear and my measurements that I've done. I've never really seen anything which I deemed significantly different from one to the other. But anyway, it's just nice to have all these tips, and I'm not complaining, because most of the times you don't even get enough tips or decent ones, and at least PENON does include some good quality tips, and I use them quite frequently. I enjoy these particular ones, and the KB Euro 7s are for me my go-to tips most of the time. Anyway, the case is amply sufficient to carry the IEM. It brings with it this particular cable here. 1 second, let me just wind it up here so it's easier to show it to you. So it brings this cable, which, I mean, it's not a bad cable, okay, but in my opinion, it's not a cable for an IEM of this caliber, but that's just my opinion. I'm sure it will be sufficient, and it does its job. I mean, honestly, to be totally honest, it did its job perfectly. However, having said that, I did put this one, the G4, also from PENON, an ISNG4, and it is a better cable. It does measure better than the stock one, and I'm not gonna sit here and say that, oh no, the difference in sound is monumental and this and that, because that would be not totally correct from my side. However, I did notice that the sound just became a little bit cleaner, and as well a little bit more. It seemed like it gained a little bit more control somehow, noticeable in certain songs, with certain instruments, guitars. You could notice that, but not a huge difference. The cable just obviously matches the IM, in my opinion, much better. As for the, let me just take away this box, it's just in the way. As for the IM itself, the turbo is actually a tiny IM, considering it's only got it's got 6 BAs, but it's a tiny IM. I mean, just for the sake of comparison, here's the Duno, the MK2, the SA6, and you can see that the Duno is significantly bigger. Actually, this is more along the size of the original Duno. All right, let's put it that way. Fit is perfect. This acrylic shell is absolutely, I mean, it's beautiful. It's got this, the video honestly doesn't do it justice in terms of how beautiful I actually find. I would like this thing to focus actually. There we go. This clear green shell, and then the marbleized faceplate, also with the green accents. And come on, there we go. The marbleized green faceplate. It just looks very, very, very smart. It genuinely does look nice, and you look at it and you see that you are looking at a quality product. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get to. It doesn't look cheap or anything of the sort. Let me just wind that up there so it looks all neat and we don't get all confused and tangled and stuff. What do I have here to? This is not so much a comparison. A comparison would be a little bit unfair, because although they have some similarities, these IMs, they also have some differences, which ultimately dictate them as being possible side grades or possible additions to one another. So it's half of that. It's half a review to try and find which is the best one, and half a means of oh yes, it also brings the little tool here for the switches, which was I'll show that in a second. It's a 50-50. I've got here the EPZ 530, which is probably one of the most surprising IMs that I've listened over the last couple of months. Why? Because I just didn't expect it to be what it is. It is absolutely unreal how good this IM is, honestly. And a testament to EPZ's ability to make a good IM if they want to. That's the reality, just because they are a brand that has up to now been focused more on the mid-fi, let's put it that way. They for me, with this, and now with the Q5, which is a single ED that just launched recently as well, with those two IMs, they have proven to me that they know what they are doing, and that they are capable of doing something very good. So this is a 5BA IM, all Sonian. Next to that, I've got here the SoundRhyme, the SR8. This is 14BA, it's a mix of Sonian and Knowles. It's got also the little tuning switches. It's vented, as you can see. Obviously, then the turbo. The turbo has got, and why the name turbo? Well, because it's got, as you can see, there are two sets of switches. Okay, one that stands alone, which is the turbo switch, and then another one, which is 3 switches. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. One is a switch which will change the bass. The middle one, 2, will change the mids, and upper bass and upper bass, mid bass and mids, let's put it that way. And then the first one, the on the far right, is affects the treble. And then the one that stands alone there, if this thing, yeah, the one that stands alone there on the left side completely, that's the turbo switch, which is like a mega bass boost for the bass. Obviously for the bass, mega bass boost, yeah, makes sense. And then finally on this, on the far right corner here, we have the Duno SA6 Mark II. I didn't bring out the normal Duno because it just doesn't make sense in my opinion. The Mark II is well, first of all, I prefer this one to the original, and it's just the one that makes sense. In terms of pricing, what are we talking here? We're talking around $440, $450 for the EPZ, although you can get it cheaper sometimes. The sound drive $749. This is $499, which is actually makes the sound drive the most expensive, and this one is $529. So 500-ish, mid 400s. These three are very closely priced. This one is a little bit more expensive, 5, 14, 6, and 6 BAs. Yeah, that's basically it. Now, getting into more details about the turbo, and I just want to check out here my notes so I don't forget anything. The thing that is the standout feature of the turbo is this. Well, it's a first in terms of tuning, which is something that PENON and ISN have been doing quite a bit lately. The ISN H30, for example, is a complete departure from the normal tuning of ISN. And with PENON, the 10th anniversary was again a departure from the usual PENON sound. And now the turbo, again, a usual departure from the usual kind of tuning that they do, but in an all BA setup. And what is the interesting fact here, like I was saying, is that they've added this turbo switch here. All right. As it stands in its normal, let's say, flat tuning of the bass, which would mean that we have the turbo switch off, the one switch for the bass off, the middle switch off, and then the one switch we have to, put it up in one. So with the bass, with the lowest setting of the bass, we have a bass level which is already about 8 dBs over what we could consider absolute flat. So that 8 dB already is quite significant, and it already is enough and will satisfy the majority of people, I guess. But the thing with the turbo was PENON didn't just want to make another BA set no, they wanted to make something special. So with the addition then, or with the putting on of the one switch of those three, so if we put on that one switch there on, which is on, as you can see, okay, what we do then is we add another 4 to 5 dBs on top of the already existing 8, so we get a total of about 12 dBs, 13 dBs. And then if we on top of that still add the turbo switch, we get another 8 dBs for a total of about 20 dBs of bass boost. And that just borders ridiculousness. It is absolutely insanity. What this allows is because that middle switch there also affects the bass slightly, with the different settings that you can play, that off, that on, or that on, this off, that off, we end up having around 10, maybe 12 different settings, 10 solid settings of bass that we can have. Some of them will be very proximal to each other. So when I show the graphs in a couple of minutes, I've just basically maintained it to the three more significant ones, which is turbo off, 1 off, 2 off, 3 on, which is the flat. Then I've got one which has the turbo off, 1 on, 2 off, and 3 off or on, doesn't really matter. And that will give me like the mid bass, the middle bass performance. And then I've got the other one which is everything on, and that's the full Monty. Then that's where you see the huge bass and so on. With all that kind of bass, that's basically the standout thing here on the PENON, is that they've dialed in bass quantities on the turbo which are not usually seen. Okay, actually I've never seen anything like it. But it's not enough that they just dialed in all of that bass. They've actually dialed it in a manner that it's really well done. It's engaging, and besides the maximum setting, which I mean is just stupidity in my opinion, and at least for what it's not a question of being stupidity. When I say stupidity, what I'm trying to say is, yes, it will satisfy the most hardcore bass head out there, and it will have ample ability to play anything like EDM and hip hop to crazy levels. I mean, it will feel like you are in a club, honestly, because it's the only I am using BAs that I've gotten that sensation that you usually get from a well implemented DD in terms of the bass, which is that visceral kind of sensation. Okay, you have BAs usually have this very quick attack time, so the bass is nice and snappy and clean and so on. Yes, you have IEMs that are then able to take that and level up and give it a little bit more punch and make that slam a little bit more full, more hard. The Neon Pro, like I mentioned, is one of them. The Sound Drum is another. And even the EPZ and the SA6 are capable as well of doing that, but they do it in a more tonally correct way. They do it. These two sound very much like a DDs inside there, while the SR8 and the PENON, the Neon Pro, they are you feel it's a BA, but you know it's got that really thick attack, punch, weight to the bass notes. With the PENON Turbo, we get kind of like an in between. And what do I mean by an in between? We get that fast bass that's typical of a BA, yes, but we get that thickness that like the SR8 is capable of giving with that quick, but that thickness that this gives, but with the tonality that you get on the EPZ or on the Duno. It is honestly, it's like I mean, if nobody told me, I would easily accept that it was a DD that was inside there, easily. It takes a little bit for you to ultimately then see, okay, no, this is actually a BA, because the slam and the thickness of that slam and that weight that slam has is just absolutely unreal. It's unbelievable. I had never ever heard anything in terms of a BA that could do that. And all I can say is I invite you guys to find the means and listen to it. Okay. Now, having said all of this and praising the bass in the way that I'm praising, this is by no means an IEM that is for someone that doesn't like bass. You have to like your bass. If you don't like bass, then don't even bother, going to listen to it. Because then you will not be able to appreciate the Turbo for what it is, and you will end up criticizing it and saying that, oh, it's not audiophile correct. No, the last thing that this wants to be is audiophile correct. What this wants to be is fun. Okay, the fact that it has the ability to give you 20 dBs of bass boost, and in the setting that I currently have, which is with the one switch on, I'm getting around 12, 13 dBs of bass boost. I mean, I'm far from I'm entering the same kind of territory like the 7 Hertz Legato, like the Fat Freak Maestro Mini, that kind of sort of bass. Okay, it's there and it doesn't shy away from saying that it's there. It's like, hello people, I've arrived, and this is how we roll. That's kind of how the Turbo does things. Now, obviously, you would think, oh, okay, but with that amount of bass, then the rest of the frequencies have been messed up and it doesn't sound good. And no, trust me. And this is testament again to how PENON functions. PENON makes sure that they choose the highest quality BAs that will perform and give them what they want. So they went for Sony and Acupass, BAs for the bass. They're using Knowles for the mids, and they're using again Sonian for the highs. So they didn't skimp and go in, maybe opt for a cheaper BA solution. No, they opted for what is the best out there that will satisfy their requirements. And it's the same thing like on a DD. You can notice the difference between an IEM that has a good DD and one that hasn't got a good DD, although the tuning might be the same. I mean, one IEM that jumps to mind immediately is, for example, you listen to an EA500 and from SimGot, and there's no denying that the driver that is in there is a good driver, because the quality that bass has is just, it's there, period. And everything about that driver, because it's actually a single DD, the way it performs, it's just unbelievable. And that's what happens here in the Turbo. The Turbo, you listen to it, and everything has been so well selected in terms of hardware, and then so well put together that even though you have these monstrous amounts of bass, and you might think, oh, no, this is not going to sound good. No, forget it. Seriously, forget it. There is a little bit of bleed, yes, okay, but the way that the mids have been tuned, and that typical dip that we usually find on PENON IEMs and ISN IEMs at like 6 to 8K, it doesn't exist. It actually stays almost flat, precisely to counteract that bass quantity that we have. Something that we've seen already as well, by the way, on the 10th anniversary. So the fact that they've done that shows straight away that they know what they are doing. They know how to tune, because if they hadn't done it, then this wouldn't sound the way it does. Trust me. There's an analogy that I can actually make, is that depending on how you have the switches of the actual turbo setup, this can be like a little tame baby pussycat, or then it can be an absolute beast of a tiger. It's exactly that. It's just absolutely unreal how, although not being ideally tuned to be audiophile, the musicality that's been installed, or not installed, that has been implemented on how the way the whole frequency range marries so well with each part of the frequencies is being done so well that it's super engaging. I mean, I just cannot get enough of listening to the turbo. The more I listen to the turbo, the more I appreciate for what it is. Obviously, of course, there's differences to the others, which I'll get into in a second. But it is genuinely an engaging IEM. Something that, initially, not that I was ever worried or ever thought, that never crossed my mind, to be honest. But you kind of think to yourself, okay, this is going to be a little bit thick. Well, let's see. And the more I listen to it, and the more that it plays, and the more that my brain actually gets used to it, the more I can truly understand the whole magic, the whole purpose of this tuning. And this is very, very fun. Trust me, this is very fun. I never had any sense of fatigue, even though I have all this bass. It never fatigued me, and song after song I enjoy it. And even songs that don't have a lot of bass, the way that it's been done, it's so good that you actually want to listen to it. Like things like Spanish Breeze from Antonio Forcioni. Okay, it's not by any means a bass song, but it's so nice to hear the guitar, even though it sounds a little bit over thick. But it's so nice, it's so engaging. On the opposite end, you listen to something like "The Lady's Not Amused" from Jeff Cascaro, and that slam in the beginning of the song that you hear from the drums. Oh my God, it's just surreal. Seriously, it is truly surreal. La Belle Dame Sans Remorse from Chris Botti, another one that's beautifully done. Around minute to 120 to 140, the trumpet that he plays can get a little bit intense, and never ever was that an issue with the turbo, because musically the tonality and the timbre, although colored, although thick, it is so nicely done that it's just super engaging. Honestly, really super engaging. So in terms of the frequency, like I said, bass we've discussed, mids we've discussed. The typical PENON mids, even though we have all that bass, and the highs as well, beautifully done. Honestly, there's absolutely nothing that I can fault in terms of the frequency response. In terms of the technicalities, okay, fair enough. And let's be honest. Yes, if I have it in the bass settings, which I'm exploring the maximum of them, it's not going to have the ultimate detail retrieval. No, but if I cut the bass like I can by only having this last switch here on, and I cut that out, so I resort to the bass, the bass level of the bass. That sounded a little bit wrong. To the lowest level of the bass. Then we have decent detail retrieval, decent micro detailing, decent macro detailing. Imaging is more than perfect for what is here. Soundstage, it's never a very huge soundstage, never a really like majestic kind of thing. It's more of like a closed venue, but it's always still very engaging. It's more of a cozy, The best way I can say is what I usually say about PENON and ISN IEMs. They've tuned their IEMs to sound like home speakers. And this is like a really good, big old 1970s, 1980s, like a Sansui huge speaker with the great big 15 or 16 inch woofer. It's that kind of a vibe. This ultimately has a lot of the kind of, I would say, the same philosophy of the PENON serial, that kind of vibe. It's a nice big, great big 70s or 80s speaker that you know, does everything really well, and it wasn't designed to be the last the latest in terms of, oh, I'm gonna fetch every single little detail, and when that pin falls on the floor. No, that's not what the turbo is about. So in terms of its technicalities, it's, for me, in my opinion, and considering the price, more than acceptable. Obviously, you have to play around with the switches. Don't go and expect all of that if you're going to put it with the bass settings on, because obviously that then those abilities decrease proportionally. Timbre and tonality, like I just said earlier, for me, perfect. Nothing. I have nothing to complain about as well. It's got a very nice, engaging tonality, and when you take into consideration it's an all BA set, I mean, top marks. There's no metallicness of the BAs, nothing. Again, testament that what they selected to put inside here was well selected. They didn't skimp on, oh no, we're going to use some cheaper parts and that's it. No, they did their work there. All right. As then compared to what I have here, and going back to what I was saying earlier, this is not an IEM that it's totally fair for me to want to see, oh no, this is better than that one, is not, because the tunings here end up being a little bit different. Compared with the EPZ, very similar. I would say that the EPZ, as it is, because it doesn't have any switches, is basically the turbo on the lowest bass setting, okay, but with added detail in the upper mids and treble, so it sounds cleaner than that. That's all. It sounds just slightly cleaner than the turbo. Otherwise, they sound very identical. It's got that nice lush bass from its BA, and it's also all Sonian. They're very similar in their tonality, in their timbre. Technically, in that setup, which is the one where they approximate each other the most, the EPZ is slightly superior in some things, slightly inferior in others. So it kind of trade blows. So I would say, they would make sense to own both. To be honest with you, it would make sense. I wouldn't see owning both as you spending money on the same thing. No, because you could have this as perhaps your more, let's say, audiophile correct set, because that's the way that it was tuned to be primarily, and this could be your fun set to listen to EDM, to rock, to R&B, to whatever you want to listen to, and listen to it plenty loud, because it scales very well as well. Compared to the sound rhyme, and the sound rhyme also has the ability for the switches to vary its tuning significantly. The sound rhyme, as some of you know, is one of, well, the EPZ as well, but the sound rhyme is one of the IEMs that I highly recommend, because it is a truly special IEM. And again, it's very much the same situation, but over here, we might get a little bit more mid-bass slam there, but not as much sub-bass as on the turbo. But it is darker up top. It has the more traditional PENON and ISN mid and high execution. So comparatively to this, it sounds darker. All right. Otherwise, the similarities again are very prominent. It's not like there's an outright winner, because this will do certain things very well, that will do certain things also very well. So if I have to get a song and like Feel So Good, okay, from Diane Reeves, I prefer it on here. Okay, I prefer it on here without it's just better there. But if I listen to, for example, let me see, Feel It from Michelle Moron, Michelle Moron, there it just sounds a little bit better. Okay, so it will be very much what song you are using, and again, they trade blows very much again, although ultimately, if I have to be completely kind of, let's say, Acros, Tony, which one would you choose ultimately? I would choose this, and I'll tell you why I would choose this, because it takes 14 BAs here, okay, to do what this does with 6. That's the reason. And then finally with the Duno SA6, this is probably the one that has the most different tuning to a certain extent as compared to the others, because the mids, the upper mids and the treble comparatively to the rest that are here are way lower. However, the balance that they've achieved there is just surreal as well. It is not by chance that I have the Duno SA6 alongside the SR8, alongside the Neon Pro, alongside the EPZ as some of the IEMs that I recommend if you are looking for an all BA set, obviously with certain nuances depending on what you're looking for. The SA6 is a tremendous IEM. It is, out of all, the one that's got, in my opinion, the best upper mids and treble, period. Okay, in terms of bass quality, in terms of how can I put this? How lush is not the correct word, because I've heard some reviewers criticize the bass of the Duno SA6. Personally, the bass of the SA6, if I have to give it a criticism, honestly, it could be a little bit faster. It's sometimes, you it's like I said, this is a DD. It cannot be a BA because it's apparently a little bit slow. That is genuinely the only criticism I can give it. Okay. And compared to these, you get that thickness, that lushness, that weight of that, but it's a little bit snappier, a little bit. So it's a little bit more satisfying here. Okay, over here, the bass is too clinical by comparison to that. That's got a nicer, more organic tonality. This is more clinical, and this and that are again very similar. So these three are very similar. It's just a question of the amount of slam. These two about the same kind of slam. This one's got a little bit more slam. All right. So I mean, like I was saying, I can't really say that this is the best one or this is better. No, the reality is the turbo trades blows with these IEMs very well. I mean, what it's got going for it, definitely the price, definitely the versatility of the tuning, and definitely the fact that it's something novel, something new, something that hadn't been done before, and it's been well done. It's just been very well executed. And when it comes to that, you have to give it praise. There's no other IEM that has bass in this amounts and that can play the way that it does, still with good musicality. Ultimately, let me put it to you this way: the lowest bass setting here is as high or higher than any one of the other ones here. Okay, but that doesn't come at the price of it losing cleanliness in the sound, of it not being engaging or correct sounding or anything. No, it still maintains a very high level of cleanliness, a very high level of technical abilities, and above all, a very high level of musicality. It is not muddy or nothing. It's a very, very nicely tuned IEM, and I can only congratulate PENON for a job well done. It's as simple as that. Anyway, I'll show you the graphs now and we'll wrap it up. All right, take care. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section of the PENON Turbo. These are the four of the settings that are available. I'm going to start with the basic one. The basic one, as you can see, it is already 58 to 68. We already have an 8 to 66. Sorry, we already have an 8 dB boost in the bass. But this is the setting that you would use if you were looking for extracting the maximum technicalities out of the turbo. It still sounds really good, ample bass still, but this is not what the purpose of the turbo was. The purpose of the turbo was to give you a bass experience like no other. Okay, so the next setting is a setting where, contrary to the first one where we had all the bass switches off, we just had the treble on. Here we have the mid and the treble on, and we get a little extra 2 dB boost there in the bass. Things still kind of more or less balanced, nothing really very different. We are now at 10 dBs over the baseline of flat. The next setting is the setting that I use most of the time, which is the setting that has the bass on, mids and treble off. And we are now at, from baseline, from 58 to now 72, so we're now 14 dBs up in terms of the bass boost that we are getting, and this now is where the PENON starts becoming what it's all about. This is where the PENON is fun. And then the last setting is the crazy bass setting, which we have 20 dBs of boost from the bass line. So from 58 to 78, 20 dBs of boost. Okay, this is crazy. This is, I mean, like I was mentioning in the review earlier on, just for the sake of comparison so that you guys can understand. Let me get here quickly the 7 Hertz. The 7 Hertz legato. Okay, that's 7 Hertz legato, and now let me also put it there on the 1 kilohertz. There we go. I mean, the graph speaks for itself. I really need to say nothing else. Okay, it speaks for itself. Okay, compared now to the other IEMs that I had selected, and let me just take away here some of the settings. I'm just going to leave, I'm actually going to leave, first of all, the bass setting, so that we can just do a quick comparison, which is the following one. Just for you to see how much bass this has got in stock format. If I compare the turbo with its least bass, let's put it that way, with, for example, an SA6 Mark II with the bass on, which is number 12, okay, it's basically the same amount of bass. Okay. If I use it with, if I now compare it to the setting that I had it on, you can see what happens. Okay, so it's got more bass than already the SA6 in its full setting. All right, so back to that one there. If I compare it to the SR8, the same kind of thing also happens again. So let me take the Duno, put the SR8. You can see more mid bass, yes, definitely more mid bass, and you notice there's more mid bass slam, but the overall feeling that you get is that it's very equal. The moment I put on the bass on, like I just done now, it's game over for the SR8. It becomes, from 200 hertz down, it's an absolute monster. Okay, and then finally with the EPZ, I'm going to put it again with its bass setting, so that we see first with the bass setting. Okay, bass setting, so that's the bass setting of the turbo EPZ. The EPZ, yes, does seem like it's got more on the bass setting, more mid bass, definitely. You notice that the EPZ has got really good bass. That's unquestionable. But the moment I put on the bass switch on, not even then things completely change. Now they are more balanced, and in this setting, which is the setting that I used, it's like I said during the review, they are very comparable, very comparable. Ultimately, it's just up top that you get a little bit more detail, and it's just, graphs don't say everything, but yes, you do notice there's more detail on the EPZ than on the turbo, and in the bass. What I notice on the bass of the turbo compared to the bass of the EPZ is that it's as weighty, or as you can see, but it's just got that little extra cleanliness, probably down to the fact that it's 2 BAs doing the work and not just one. Okay, and also it can also play significantly louder. So anyway, with that setting of the bass switch on, mids and treble off, and the turbo switch off, which is this one, that's in black the EPZ. In red, we have the SoundRhyme, the SR8, all normalized at 1K again, let me just remind you. And the green one, which we can just see at the bottom, is the Duno SA6. And the Duno is the one that kind of stands out the most different from the rest. But somehow, it's like I was saying in the review, it's the balance that they've struck between the lowest and the highest frequencies. This balance is just so well done that in terms of mids, upper mids, it's just unbelievable. Honestly, it is for me at least. It's really good. Now, in terms of which is the most fun IEM out of all them, then I mean I have to say it's the turbo. The turbo is unquestionably the most fun out of all of them. The bass is just it's addictive. It's genuinely addictive because you end up hearing things that. In a way that you never thought, oh, okay, this is actually fun listening to it like this. Sorry about that. And that's it. I mean, there's really not much more I can say. I hope I was able to clarify whatever doubts and position well the turbo next to at least these three BA IEMs. If there's any questions, please, feel free to ask. Oh, just one thing that I want to just finish up before I leave you is, it's always the case for the majority of IEMs, but the turbo is very much tip dependent. In terms of the source, I did overall prefer the sound of the turbo hooked up with the 2RA BFE from Venture Electronics. It just sounded more, perhaps because it's a cleaner sounding amp deck, in the sense of well, not that the M15 or the KN aren't clean or anything, but it's a more clinical sound. It's got but it's clinical organic, and that clinical organic sound just somehow matches nicely with that organic fun presentation of the turbo, and the synergy of the two just works really well. I enjoyed it very much with that. Not that the difference was day and night to the other combos, but it really worked very well with the Venture Electronics. Guys, as always, like and subscribe. If there's any questions that you want to ask or anything, please feel free to ask. And once again, I apologize if I carry on with my reviews being a little bit long, but I just get carried away, and I try my best to convey my passion to you guys. That's all. All right, you take care now. Bye bye.